We'll talk about that after the podcast. We'll talk about that after. Anyway, all right. Three, two, one. No, that's how we're starting the show.
No,
Hello,
that
everybody.
is not how we're starting the show.
Oh, I needed that laugh. I'm so sorry. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because you're smiling. I really
Okay.
needed that. That felt good.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Paws podcast. I am Spooner Sloth. This is my friend HP Fox. We are very professional podcasters. We were totally not false starting like 6 or 7 times just now, giggling and watching him choke on coffee.
Not at all.
Yeah, absolutely not what just happened. Fox, what are you up to, man? It's been a bit since we got to sit down and chit chat. How's life treating you?
It feels like it's been quite a while now since we don't have the Sunday D&D game together at the moment. So it has been like 2 weeks since we've kind of sat down. Things have been crazy on my end because we're very quickly approaching TwitchCon, so I'm trying to get all my scheduling kind of squared away and Hunter's scheduling. Nobody releases their meeting times until like 2 days before the con, and
Twitch hasn't even announced anything about the party, and it's literally a week away.
Yeah. And that's like the standard for people for some reason for conventions, and it's really dumb and bad.
That just seems very asinine. It seems like a very, very poorly planned thing. I'm glad I don't care about the party and that I am not big enough to merit very many meetings.
Yeah, I've RSVP'd to like 4 parties, I think, so far. I'm probably not going to go to any of them.
Do it. Don't go to any of them. Just like hang out with me and Panda and like just drink and talk business and shit. It'll be awesome.
Sounds good. That's kind of what we did at the end of most nights last year, and it was so relaxing to just have that time at the end of the day after a hectic schedule to unwind. There was one night where I think I had too much tequila, so that's a different story, but it's good to have those moments.
Yeah, no, it's I tweeted out earlier today as such. It's like everybody's all hyped or stressed out or talking about packing. I'm like, I'm just fucking happy. Because it's one thing to like see Smashly or Daniel or you or Hunter or Impious on stream or on video chat. I want to physically hug people and like shake hands, and I want to hear a voice because it's next to me, not because it's in my earbuds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Since we've touched each other. It's been a year since we've touched each other, Spoon.
That, you know what?
And I want to touch you again.
All phrasing aside, that, at the end of the day, all the modern advancement technology, we're still lizard brains, right?
Yep.
All of us are still kind of cavemen and cave women and non-binary cave people. So, we crave physical space.
Before we get to how you're doing, since we are kind of talking about conventions right now, I do want to make a note, since this is coming out before the convention, and some people, or maybe one person, might actually listen to this before the convention.
There are literally tens.
The possibilities are endless. The bag policy at the convention this year is drastically different from what it has been, for very good reason, as we all know. So if you're planning on bringing your backpack to the convention center, don't, because they will not let it in. They actually directly recommend something like a small shoulder bag, or I think they actually said fanny pack.
Well, they gave us all fanny packs last year.
They did, yeah. So if you don't have a bag like that, pick one up before the convention if you want to carry a bag around with you. So they will not let your backpack into the convention center.
Right. And
so,
I'm trying to think, what would you bring into a convention backpack wise? Like, what would you want? Unless you wanted something signed, or you can take swag out, but they'll give you a bag inside.
So for me, last year, I always had my backpack with me last year, and I kind of got that from Hunter. He was the one that told me to do that, and it was good. I'm glad I had it, because in my backpack, I carried around all my business cards. I carried around a water bottle because you don't want to be putting your mouth on those nasty water fountains in the convention center. I carried around hand sanitizer in the backpack. I carried around, I think, 2 backup batteries with USB output in the backpack. I had some documents in the backpack. So it's good to have a bag with you to carry all that stuff. So, you know, your pants aren't weighed down the whole time with that in your pockets. Unless you're, you know, somebody that travels light, then it doesn't concern you.
Yeah, I'm like a super utilitarian, man. I travel like light, as in I piss off everybody around me whenever I catch a flight because I literally I'm naked as a jaybird half the damn time, for what it's worth.
I'm usually that way. Like when I do international flights and stuff, I usually only have one bag with me, and it's small enough to be a carry-on bag. I have never once in my life checked my luggage, because I don't travel with that much stuff. But in the convention center, I found it was really useful to have that bag on hand. So that's your PSA for the day.
Right on. We get the weekly PSA. Also, I don't believe we're going to be releasing another episode of this on time, simply because next weekend next Friday we will not be releasing one, and then the Friday after I will actually be in California again still, because I'm going to BlizzCon.
That's right. Yes.
So I mean,
unless we, you know, record something in the one day or whatever it is, you're back in town before you leave for BlizzCon.
Like Halloween Eve. So the day before Halloween, we'll try to bang something out if we can do it. I think that's.
So actually, I don't get back into town until late on that day.
Okay. Damn it.
Because I'm gone from the 24th to the 30th.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm gone for like a full 7 days this year.
Right. So what you're saying is we will probably record another episode this coming week, maybe. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll figure something out for the tens of you.
If we can find time, we'll let you guys know.
Right
so
on.
Now that those are out of the way, how has your 2 weeks been?
My 2 weeks have been good. I honestly can't really complain. I've been having a wonderful time finding, like, my groove. Is that, I don't know that's the right word I want to use, but I've been finding my groove in painting freaking Warhammer miniatures on stream. It has been so unexpectedly not just fun. I always thought it was gonna be fun, but it's been good for growth. It's been good for me mentally. It's just a lot of goddamn fun. I should have done this a year ago. I'm pretty sure that if I started this a year ago, I would probably be in a very, very different place today, career-wise. And, well, you know, lesson learned. Outside of that...
Well, you've started it now, and then that's what matters.
Yeah.
And they're looking so good. Go follow him on Twitter at Spoonersloth to see pictures. They're amazing.
Dude, I thank you. But yeah, I'm like, I'm having people come in that have like, I haven't painted in 25 years, and these look amazing. How long have you been painting? This is like my third week. I've been doing this for 14 days. They're like, holy shit! Well, that's a good job. And then everybody's just really supportive too, which is kind of cool. But then though, you get the one guy come in and start talking about like, you know, 786 Gianni, whatever the fuck brushes, and this paint, and I'm like, it's
that's one side of it that has always kind of, I guess, irked me. The people that think you need the big fancy stuff to make things look good. You need the fancy brushes. You need the expensive paints. You need this one exact color that was manufactured for a year and a half by this company in Denmark 10 years ago to make this one model look just perfect. You don't need any of that.
That's such a weirdly specific complaint of yours, but yeah, I feel you. There is a place for those really, really high-end, I'm not a hobbyist, this is like, I'm an artiste and I'm entering in a competition. So yeah, sure, there's a space for that. But I haven't had anybody be negative with me about it. They pop in and they suggest something, and then you know, we roll with it from there. But otherwise, it's been good. I actually dabbled. I'm gonna have a sacrilegious confession. So I got a really, really inexpensive copy. I got like a $10 copy of the new Call of Duty game of Black Ops 4. And I played it tonight before we began recording the podcast. I played 3 matches of Blackout, which is the Battle Royale mode, and half of a match of Zombies. I've never played any of that before, Blackout or Zombies. Blackout felt like this is PUBG, almost identically, except vaulting is better. And I don't know what any of the guns are because they don't have regular names. They have like some cockamamie fucking fantasy name for a gun, so I didn't know if I was picking up something good or bad, or I didn't know what the fuck I was picking up, and that was a little frustrating. And Zombies glitched out. I got downed, and then I got stuck perpetually I was in God mode, laying on the ground, out of ammo, kicking everything to death that tried to get near my friends that were like stacking up on top of my body. And because it doesn't ever end until everybody dies, I just left. I kind of like exited out after 15 minutes.
You didn't stick around until you won?
There is no winning. It just, you keep going until everybody dies, and if I can't die, the match will go on infinity.
Well, then you win by default.
Right. So here's my unpopular opinion. Fuck, it is not fun. It is so not fun.
It's not fun.
No. Everybody, it's another Warframe for me. I see people
that
playing it.
That does genuinely seem to be an unpopular opinion.
It's like everybody's like, oh, look how much fun I'm having. I'm going to stream it, and this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's like they weaponize blowjobs. This is amazing. And then I play it, and it's like, this is fucking really unintuitive and kind of, no, I'm not having fun. And then I am sure I'll give it a fair shake. I'll give it a good couple of hours of playing, but hot take first impressions, I am not interested. Nothing has popped out that has stood out to say, oh, okay, cool, I want to play that because I can't get that anywhere else. I'm like, I don't have that feeling with the new Call of Duty.
At least you gave it a try.
Yeah.
I've been hearing a lot of good things about the BR mode, but obviously there are people on the other end of the spectrum, and that's perfectly okay as long as everybody gives it due diligence before they start shitting on it or start praising it or whatever happens.
Right. And for the record, I'm not shitting on it. And the BR mode is, look, it's like a very, very, very polished and well defined and refined, refined battle royale. It's I mean, I haven't played the Fortnite battle royale, but I played original Fortnite and I played PUBG, and of all the battle royale stuff, I mean, this one really is kind of the best battle royale. I would argue it's good, but it's nothing different.
Yeah, I can't really comment myself because I have not played a battle royale before. Well,
you're not missing
I played PUBG only once, and I got 7th place. Nice. So I figure that's a really good record to retire on.
Well, yeah, that's a perfect record to retire on. And anyway, but yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad game by any means. Don't fucking dox me and come yell at me, all you very, very angry dude bros and big name broadcasters. But maybe it's just not for me. I'm like, I always give the argument, go, maybe I'm just simple, maybe I'm kind of a dullard, but it's not horrible. It's just,
everybody has a different perspective on the genre and on that series in particular.
Right.
And speaking of perspective and games, you want to kind of introduce the topic that we're supposed to be talking about as I put you in the spotlight when you're trying to drink?
No, yeah, it's okay. You can put me on the spotlight. I'm used to it. I'm Cuban. I like the heat. Yeah. So I know we started off very, very tangenty. We started very ranty.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah, we're feeling a little ranty today. Today is just one of those days. I'll be honest. I'm freaking tired as hell. But
it's a stressful time of year.
Yeah, it's right before conventions. A lot of shit popping off. That being said, the topic today I wanted to broach up. So I approached HP Fox and I said, hey man, I got an idea for the next podcast. And I tell him my idea and he goes, that's a great idea, Spoon. Let's fucking do it. So here's the thing. I would like to discuss this seeming resurgence, this seeming popularization, if you will, of story-driven gaming, in particular, talking about CRPGs or Western-style RPGs. So your isometric, Diablo-ish, that kind of like camera angle, single-player gaming.
So for those that may not really be familiar with the genre or the term isometric, do you want to kind of explain what exactly that means?
Sure. So like and there's more to the conversation after the fact. This is just like the first breadcrumb, right? In gaming, you typically have your first-person games where the perspective is first-person shooter, you know, some racing games, flight sims, things of that nature. Then you have third-person games where the camera is in the third person and you are looking at everything. Then you have an isometric style game. Isometric would be if you've ever played or watched anybody playing any of the Diablo games, any MOBAs like League of Legends or anything of that nature, where you have a fixed camera that is typically facing down and you get to see a top-down view. Sometimes it's angled just a little bit, and wherever you click, your little character, your avatar moves around, and that is that perspective. That's what isometric games are. That's kind of how they're working.
So would you say games like Frostpunk or even something like Stardew would fall into isometric?
Yes, a Stardew Valley, though, just the perspective alone, it would be an isometric style game as far as visual, right? Frostpunk as well. Even though Frostpunk is like a strategy, city building, survival kind of thing, still that view, that's isometric. You're not in third person following one little civilian around, one little settler or whatever it is that they call themselves in Frostpunk, I forgot. Survivor. And you're not in the first person, you're not in the third person, you're hovering, you get to see a bigger picture, you get to see more of what's going on.
So you also mentioned CRPG and like Western style RPGs.
Right.
I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with the term RPG, and I'm sure a great number of us are familiar with what like a JRPG is.
Yeah.
So what's a CRPG? What's a Western style RPG?
I don't even know if it's an actual term. I think I kind of made that up myself at some point to define it so I wouldn't go insane. A CRPG is a character.
Just coined it.
Yeah, I just coined it. So to me, it's always a character role-playing game. So a game where it's in a JRPG is Japanese style, role-playing game. JRPGs, your Final Fantasies, things of that nature. A Western style RPG are the same thing, but usually developed here in the States or sometimes in, parts of Europe. It's a different style. It's less open worldy. It's usually isometric top-down in view, and they almost always emulate mechanics that are in traditional tabletop RPGs. So examples of these kinds of games, the original Fallout 1, Fallout 2. Let me see, I without jumping into modern day. Oh yeah, let me just jump right into modern stuff. So the Pillars of Eternity games, the latest Pathfinder, Kingmaker game, you have those kinds of style of gaming. Even stuff like XCOM, XCOM 2, BattleTech, things of that nature. Those would be, well, maybe not XCOM. Those are isometric games, even though they're not. They're more like tactical, turn-based kind of stuff. But for all intents and purposes, the RPG ones, Divinity Original Sin 2, that's a very, very big one as well. Those are your Western-style RPGs. And I've been seeing a lot of them get kickstarted successfully, very quickly, surprisingly so, and just become super popular. Not just popular by critics giving them good scores, but by players giving them good scores. The Steam reviews are almost always, extremely positive. They sell well, and they're really actually very, very lucrative for broadcasters. I've looked at a lot of, high-end broadcasters. Ko pretty much makes his day-to-day schedule is almost entirely this style of game. Just throwing out an example. As well, just in a similar vein, but not in the exact same example, single-player games as a whole, like the new Spider-Man game, no multiplayer whatsoever. Wildly successful game, right? The new God of War, same thing. Single-player title, wildly successful. I don't think there's even any DLC at all for the new God of War that I'm aware of, or that they're working on any.
it sounds to me like you are directly contradicting EA here.
I am. And you know what? I can see now, as I've thought it through, and I was remembering where I was at the time, because it's interesting when people make these really hyperbolic bullshit commentary to call out what you're mentioning. This guy at EA, he was some big shot there, said something like, single player games are dead, or nobody plays single player games anymore. The future of gaming is in multiplayer. And a lot of people balked at that. They chafed that. They go, you're full of shit. But they started injecting multiplayer elements into pretty much every game that came out after the fact. After that statement, I think it was like 2011, right? Like 2010, 2011?
It was a while ago now.
Right. Every game that came out since has like a multiplayer mode or some kind of like online element, right? I see now today, and I have to think back history-wise, gaming in general kind of started out exactly where it's at now. I almost feel like it's a cyclical kind of thing where gaming used to be like way back in olden times, just it was a fun little game, something to pass time, just kind of like for having a goof. Then you had your Zeldas and your Marios and so forth. Then now suddenly there's an actual story, right? And then people are starting to actually inject story into the game, so your pixel, your little 8-bit game dude has a reason to do things. Then on multiplayer technology, online gaming became a thing, and the technology kind of skyrocketed, and we were all culturally thrust into the world of social media and connecting online and playing games online. And so it just kind of like, it would make sense to me at that point for somebody to make a statement saying, single player games are dead. When everybody now, well, not everybody, but the vast majority of people have high-speed internet. Absolutely everybody, no exaggeration, has a smartphone, knows, is on Twitter, is on Facebook, is communicating online, so playing online is the next natural step. It was...
it's like, back in, I don't know, say 1986, I think that was when Mario came out.
Yeah.
It's like or back in 86, somebody picks up an NES and plays Mario for the first time. They're going to see what's on that screen, and they're going to go, oh, this is the future? Well, MUDs are dead. Nobody's ever going to make a MUD again.
Right.
But
MUDs.
Clearly, people still play the MUDs, for those that are not aware and are not disgustingly old. It's a text-based, usually adventure game, where there's no graphics. It's all text. You're reading and selecting an option, and then reading and then selecting another option. And it sounds terrible, but there's actually some really good ones out there.
It used to be like, literally, I walk into a room and the text reads on the screen. You walk into a room and it describes the room, and then if it's now your turn to say what you want to do. You literally have to type walk north or walk south or whatever it is, and then it would read to you, your character walks north and this is what you see, blah blah blah. So it was like before we had graphics cards, that's what we played.
So for anybody that saw the Bethesda E3 presentation where they showed off Skyrim on the Echo, that's a MUD, but that's audio instead of text.
That's talking to you, so somebody's reading to you the MUD. So you're a blind person playing a video game, essentially.
So, it makes sense in the context for somebody to see what they perceive to be the future of the industry and say, oh, well, this old thing that we were doing, nobody's ever going to go back to that. That's dead now. This is the future. And that, if you look at it from that perspective, you can kind of understand why that guy said what he did, although he didn't have to say it in such an asshole-ish tone. But that's besides the point. So and looking at the graphics that we have now in like Call of Duty and stuff, you can look back at those isometric games and go, nobody's ever going to play those again when we have these amazing realistic graphics right here. That's just simply not true.
Yeah, I mean, it defies quote unquote common sense. People are, and I don't think it's simple. I don't think it's something like just a simple explaining it away as nostalgia. I don't think it's nostalgia.
Yeah, I personally have never really been that big on isometric games back when, they were the thing. But I find now with all these new ones that are coming out, it's starting to really grab my interest. And that could just be because my interests have shifted. But even so, there's no nostalgia factor there for me personally, because I didn't like them before, but now I do. So it's, you know, the stories and the way they're presented are definitely in the times of now, but it's just in the visual style of what games used to be.
Right.
And it melds really well together in a lot of the cases.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you my I'm gonna walk you through my thought process, right? And this is part of the discussion we're having today on the podcast is obviously I am advocating for you. If you are an influencer, if you're a broadcaster, YouTuber, whatever it is, I want you to play these games. I want you to try them out. If it's something you like, it's something your community's into, it's something that maybe you want to give a shot to see if it gets any kind of reaction, try it. It's great for live broadcasting because you can pause these games typically. They're usually tactical. So when you're with a party and you're moving your little, your guys through through a town, and then there's a bunch of goblins spawn, you can pause the game, kind of move the camera around to see what's going on, and then strategically position or give commands out, and then when you unpause it in real time, your party kind of does those things, and it gives a lot of time for you to stop and interact with your chat. It gives you a lot of time to set up things that are funny or listen to advice, or there's a lot of room for engagement. There's a lot of opportunity for engagement there, which I think is really great. Not to mention you can typically name items or characters after people that subscribers, people in chat, things of that nature, for if you're doing it live, not if you're pre-recording. All of this though, it caught my attention because I was thinking about, I'm always asking what's the next big thing, right? I'm always thinking in my head, what's going to be the next big thing? Because I want to get on the ground floor of that. I think everybody does. Everybody has that vibe, that hunger, right? That thirst to kind of be relevant. Relevancy is fucking, don't even get me started on that soapbox, that tangent. But so I got to thinking. I saw that Microsoft is apparently making big moves to buy Obsidian. It was the big rumor that I read. I can't remember exactly where I read it, but Obsidian was like the granddaddy of these kinds of games, right? Single player, very deep story, lots of branching, different choices. That's a big thing with these kinds of games as well. You get a lot of player choice. So if you choose to save that person, you're not going to save the other person, and that's going to have lasting effects in the story of the game, an hour from now, a day from now, whatever the case may be, however long you play it.
Yeah.
Obsidian, they made Fallout New Vegas. I'm pretty sure they did the original Fallouts. They've done this new, the Pillars of Eternity, and the latest Pillar of Eternity, I think, is called Deadfire. So we got that coming out. Even CD Projekt Red, their next Witcher game is a single player experience, which is of course CD Projekt Red, but the combat is card based, like Gwent, like a Hearthstone kind of trading card game, or Elder Scrolls Legends. That's the combat, but every other part of the game is that isometric top down. You're pointing and clicking and moving, your character around and exploring and talking to other NPCs and that kind of thing. So, and it looks beautiful. I actually pre-ordered. I'm gonna play the head. It's called Thronebreaker, and it looks beautiful. The art style is just immaculate.
So not to get you off your tangent here, but would you say that type of movement that you described, kind of point and click type of thing, is kind of a necessary factor for these isometric RPG games, or?
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Here's my kicker. Not everybody can play Fortnite. Not everybody. My wife loves competition. She loves playing Heroes of the Storm. She loves playing, like a game that only has competitive mode, right? But gets motion sick when it comes to first-person shooters.
Mm-hmm.
So, not everybody can play and stream a shooter. Not everybody can play and stream, sim games or whatever it is. Sometimes a game that is more accessible to everybody and is easier to follow along the action of what's going on. That's the thing. That's why sports does so good, Because when you look at basketball or baseball or football, when you look at any traditional sport, soccer or whatever, hockey, you can tell what the fuck is happening. It's very at a glance. Within a millisecond, you look at your screen and you know, for the most part, what's happening. You know, things are defined, uniforms are defined. It's very, very easy. Can you describe the point and how to win in like one sentence? You can do that. With these kinds of games, you have the breathing room because you can pause, because you're meant to go slower. You're meant to take in the story elements and follow along. You can engage your audience better with that, and you yourself can get lost in this story. And that kind of brings me to my next point in particular. That seems to be something I'm starting to notice a very strong trend. It began already, so it's not like this is a new thing just emerging. It's out. It's emerged. I'm only just now becoming aware of it. You know, when you can't see the forest for the trees. It seems that, I don't know if it's because of the current geopolitical climate. I don't know if it's because of the economy and where we're at, or where our Western society is at the moment. I'm starting to see a lot of people want to kind of escape or get like getting lost in a book. They want to get lost in a story. They want to get lost in a fiction. I'm seeing a lot less sitcoms being talked about, and I'm hearing a lot more people talking about these overarching like serials, like, you know, like a dramatic like Riverdale or Game of Thrones or God, give me another example here off the top of my head. Shit. I was just thinking about it earlier today. Damn it. Anyway, I'll figure it out. I'll remember. It'll come screaming back to me. So there's just a lot of like really epic, you know, TV series. And they're long running shows. They have like multiple seasons, you know, usually 10 to 12 episodes a season. They're big. Oh, Westworld. That's what I was saying about. You know, you've got all these different shows that are more of getting lost in the character and the overarching story and the little miniature stories that are popping off. And it's something you can sit down, completely give into, and then when the show is over or the game is over, you can talk to people about it.
So do you think a big factor in that specific kind of example that you were giving might be, I don't want to say less the kind of geopolitical climate, but or partly the fact that cable TV isn't really a thing anymore, at least not for this generation and future generations. That outlet for studios to produce those sitcoms and stuff that they used to all the time just isn't there anymore, so they have to present a more involved and more dramatic experience in the streaming world to catch that audience? Or do you think that doesn't really play a factor into what we see happening in that space?
Maybe. I don't know well enough, and I'm not confident enough in my argument to think that, yeah, I can definitively say that. But I think it plays a role. I think it could. That's why I'm giving you a maybe on that. I'll say as well, generationally speaking, a lot of us are older. Like I'm 35. There's a lot of this generation that is producing this content because we enjoy this kind of content. People who read A Song of Ice and Fire, people who are into, like, you know, a lot of science fiction novels or fantasy novels. It used to be books, and now it's kind of, I mean, hell, Riverdale is goddamn Archie comics turned into into this really heavy kind of like drama.
And it's surprisingly good.
Yeah, it's like, I haven't seen it yet, but everybody and their mother is like, yo, are you going to watch Riverdale? I'm like, I don't know.
There's a lot of really cheesy and really predictable moments in it, as I almost spill my coffee. But it's just a really good kind of twist on that Archie tale.
Right, and that's the kind of thing that I think people are latching onto. Now I'm trying. I know it's a long walk to get from point A to point B. I'm trying to keep it short. I'm taking you guys on a fucking trip.
I'm gonna keep asking you questions that derail you. Don't worry.
No. Here's the thing, right? Back when I met my wife, this was 13 years ago. This was when World of Warcraft came out.
An eternity ago.
Yeah, an eternity ago, right? We met online in World of Warcraft. And the reason that was even a thing that happened is we were both in this position where the economy was about to it was about to just shit the bed, right? This was right before the stupid recession crap, and then the whole world kind of went to ass. I was getting more value for my dollar to play this game than to go spend $12 and watch a movie, or to go spend the gas, or whatever the case may be. And all of my friends were playing this game, so and you notice there was this shift. Everybody, grandparents, senior citizens, children, you name it, people were playing online games. People, for all, let's just not dance on the obvious. People were playing freaking World of Warcraft. People were playing multiplayer games. And it just kind of kept stacking on top of that. Everybody, there was a lot of people playing a lot of online gaming. Technology helped facilitate that. It was like, instead of going out tonight, I'm going to hang out with my friends online.
That was that entertainment.
Exactly.
At that time, it kind of took place of television and movie theaters and that kind of stuff.
Right. And we were already used to the couch co-op and playing like Xbox Live and Halo, and we were used to that kind of thing. Then I want to say between then and now, things kind of got out of hand. Everybody is just not connecting in real space, right? And we have this thing that we've talked about on stream a couple times. We've talked about on the podcast a couple times. I know I've had this conversation ad nauseum with my wife and with other friends of mine, talking about social media and not being able to, not having the tools, especially younger folks not having the tools to like engage with one another in real life because they just don't, right?
So I'm gonna probably derail you.
No, go for it, man. Go for it. That's what this one's about.
And I feel like this might be a bit of a difficult question to answer, but do you think VR has the potential to rebuild that kind of personal connection to each other that we seem to be losing these days?
Yes and no. I think that it does, because it provides a simulacrum of real space, right? It's VR, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it does not, or it may not be able to.
I gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know that it can, because fundamentally, at the bedrock, the foundation of what VR is just that it is a simulation. It's a simulacrum. It's a copy. It's not actual physical presence with another person, which a lot of people will expunge and be like, it's not that important. It's still, I'm not detracting. I'm not saying that online relationships are not real. I'm not saying that the interactions that I'm having right now with HP Fox via video chat and then recording, this is a real interaction. This has just as much legitimacy and substance as if we were in person. However, I don't believe that humans psychologically, metaphysically have evolved to the point where we can just say, I'm going to get in VR and I'm going to have this, it's going to be just as effective as being in person.
So I'm going to counter that, and I'm going to say I think VR has the possibility to build stronger personal connections than we have ever had in the past.
Okay.
Because VR offers spaces like VR chat, we've all seen and heard of VR chat at this point, that allow a person to project an image of themselves that they feel to be true. In the world, we cannot necessarily project who we feel we are in that physical space. I can't project an image of a dainty female or something if that's who I feel I am. I can't do that in the real world.
Right.
But in a place like VR chat, in a VR world, I can do that. And that can be the first impression that somebody gets of me. They can see the person that I feel I am right off the bat. And I think that has the potential to open ourselves up to each other in a way that's never been possible before.
I don't disagree with you at all. I would say that's a very optimistic and almost utopian way to look at it. That's absolutely the case. However, I've looked at VR chat. VR chat's where the do you know the way, Ugandan clicking knuckles thing came from. What you said, that scenario absolutely could play out. Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure it does. I just don't have a whole world of faith in the power of anonymity. If I said that right, like
a certain level of maturity is required for that scenario to play out.
Right, and
unfortunately,
think that
scenario is possible.
Oh, it's absolutely possible. I mean, without a doubt. I'm not even saying it's not likely. It's rather likely. I just know that beautiful, wonderful situation where, I mean, not to get on too much of a tangent, it can happen in real life. It can happen in actual physical real life. Don't get me wrong. And people do project. I mean, maybe not your physical presence, but people have been faking it till you make it and putting on a mask since the beginning of when Ugg talked to Jug. It's been happening since the beginning. That being said, a beautiful moment like that is ruined immediately by somebody trolling. Which unfortunately I had this conversation, not to get super on a tangent, I had this conversation with my teenager this morning, dropping her off at school. Talking about how I made a comment beside myself where I said, God, your generation's so fucking weak. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like, the things that you guys think are hot shit, like that's back in my day, I had like the back in my day moment, like I feel like an old bastard. It's like the back in my day, you can tell somebody was being like, God, what did I said? Like today's metric, today's litmus test of whether or not somebody is being mean or a bully is if they anonymously, in the safety of their own home, talk shit about you online and make you feel bad. Which is like, that's such a fucking cowardly way to be a bully. That's such a chicken shit way to be a bully.
But it's also become a necessity to be a bully. You have to do it that way these days because you cannot get away with the shit that we used to do when we were children, what our parents used to do when they were children, because you'd be locked up, you'd be in jail.
Exactly.
So
it's unfortunate.
I'm gonna again counter you and say it is not a cowardly way to be a bully. It is I almost said
the efficient way to be a bully.
Credit. An adaptive way to become a bully. You find the ways in which you can express that shitty, stupid fucking side of you that you want to present to the world and get away with it at the same time.
Yeah, we're getting on a totally different subject of like, I think we covered this too.
This was supposed to be a happy podcast.
Right. No, okay. Let's get back on the rails. But we're gonna go off the rails another time, but I agree with you, right? Well, people adapt for just fucking people. People suck, all right? Mm-hmm. Individuals are great. People in general suck. Back to the whole CRPG gaming and single player gaming and thing. I noticed a trend, right? This generation in particular, I'm going to use the M word. Don't get fucking mad. So millennials.
All right, this podcast is over.
No, there's this big emphasis on people my age, right? In your mid to early 30s.
Nobody can agree on
what it is.
Where millennials start and stop.
Right. Fuck them. The people after baby boomers, whatever, man. Me. Our generation. The 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, right? Mm-hmm. There seems to be a very profound emphasis on authenticity and experience, and statistics are proving it. People are less likely to be buying houses. They're more into, I don't want to spend my money to lock it down and buy a home. I want to spend my money and go travel. I want to have experiences. I want to see reality. We crucify anybody who is in a social space if they seem disingenuous, if they seem like they've sold out or they've been bought out because they are not genuine, they're not authentic. That's, hypocrisy gets called out crazy.
I'd say we crucify them to a fault on our part.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, right? That being said, that desire for realness, that desire for real talk, for authenticity, for somebody not to just be putting on a show or putting on a mask. We were forced psychologically going. I'm not going down that fucking rabbit hole with the participation trophies and all that shit. People this day and age, we're kind of tired of having to put on a mask. I want to be myself. You know, people want to be accepted for who they are, be it your sexual preference, be it whatever you gender identify, but whatever it is, people want to be accepted genuinely and authentically. So they crave authentic interactions. A lot of these single player kind of experiences seem to emulate that kind of authenticity. It's a time where you can craft a story, and this leads me into, you know, segueing into the next thing. I looked at all these games and I looked at all these things that I loved, that I was having so much fun with. And at the end of the day, all they're doing is making the story the central actor in the experience. Not, you know, the cool 360 no scope headshot, not, you know, the individual player's skill or the graphics or anything. It's the story is the main thing. And all of that kind of goes back to the root, the core, where it all began, which is, at least for gaming, tabletop art, Dungeons and fucking Dragons. It all went back to like tabletop RPGs, people gathering around and making a story together.
So would you say, well, maybe not, would you say, do you think that that type of storytelling has always existed, but is kind of more in the spotlight now than it ever has been, because so many other media outlets are losing their popularity? You know, newspapers aren't that much of a thing anymore. Magazines, you can't produce them anymore because people aren't buying them. There's been a reduction in, you know, book sales in the last like generation or what have you, because people aren't really investing in that written word anymore. So do you think the people that would maybe otherwise tell those stories in the written word are looking at other outlets such as gaming, such as tabletop, etc., as a way to get their stories out into the world? Or do you think that's not even a factor at all?
I won't say it's not a factor at all. I'm never going to give a full definitive black and white answer when you ask a question like that. I think that people are still reading a shit ton. Maybe they're reading on Kindle, maybe they're reading online. So, but yeah, books, bookstores. I mean, let's not even get into where Barnes and Noble is doing financially.
Yeah.
But I would say that I'm leaning more towards no. I'm leaning more towards, I think it's just people want to have personal connections again. I'll give you an example. All right, and this is another my other Spooner tip: stream D&D, play D&D, find a role-playing game, find a group, get your friends together. It's gonna be scary. You're gonna be like, it's not just for me. I was never into it. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable role-playing. Like, don't have to. Just everybody's on stage. It's like karaoke. What do you think karaoke bars are now becoming like? They're coming back. It's becoming a thing. It's a legitimate business to invest in right now, and it'll typically be successful.
I'll die before I ever do karaoke.
The fuck
but I'll
you will.
watch you do karaoke.
No, I'm getting your ass to do karaoke. One way or the other. If I did it for the first time, you're gonna totally fucking do it. Anyway. We'll that's after the podcast.
Yeah.
It's God. It's if I can find like I'm trying to find the best way to articulate it, because I really want to make sure that I get my point across clear. It seems to me that we went on this weird, like you can't see if you're listening, but I'm doing like a wave curve motion with my hand. We were very much always in person, always hanging out at each other's houses, playing video games or reading books or doing D&D or whatever it was. Then everybody split apart and everybody went to just online only. And now I think that rubber band is snapping back, and societally speaking, a lot of people are putting a much higher value on being in person and seeing personal other human beings. Twitch. How many of you, and I'm even asking you for HP Fox, do you have Twitch on or a YouTube video on even though you're not actively watching it. If you just want to hear people talking in the background while you are doing something else.
So, I don't think I'm a good person to answer this question because I work with a broadcaster, so naturally I have his broadcast on anytime he is streaming, and he streams for 12 hours a day every day. So
yeah,
I kind of always have that on by default. But I do, when I can, try to ingest a lot of spoken material. Podcasts are a big thing that I really enjoy, particularly actually the Adam Savage project.
Which is I love that
untitled podcast on Tested with Adam and all the folks from Tested. So I try to ingest that type of content. It's not only good to have it on in the background when I'm doing my own thing, but it's also educational. That's what I steer towards. I don't actually look for that social interaction, that kind of personal touch or personal voice. That's not something I'm interested in, but that's just my personality. I know I'm an outlier when it comes to that. I can live in solitary confinement for years on end and not have a problem.
You're a maniac.
I'm absolute not sociopath. The ordinary when it comes to that.
Absolute sociopath. Got it. I'm gonna write that. No, well, you're not.
I don't like labels, but
well, no, look. I mean, I started really. I did my fucking homework for the podcast. I started doubling down. I started thinking about it. I go, why the hell are vlog videos and vlog channels so goddamn popular? Why are unboxing videos so popular? Just why do people watch the just chatting category on Twitch, where it's literally just people talking? It's just somebody talking to you.
Yeah, it's exactly what you've been talking about. It's that kind of personal connection. It's that window into this other person's life that you can be a part of.
And honest to God, I mean, malls are kind of dying. The institutions that were in place when I was growing up, where you could people watch, where you could see other faces, you could see other human beings, or just engage even passively with other people in your society, they're going away and being replaced in cyberspace. Video calls, Discord, Skype, God, what's the other one? Splat? No.
Splat?
No, what the hell you use when you're talking? Never mind, man. It's like a business chat thing that never fucking turns off. I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank. Anywho, so when I see stuff like
Slack, I think is what
Slack, not Splat. Slack.
I was waiting to see if you were going to get there, and you were so close.
I was so close, but well, that's what edging is. We'll talk about that in another podcast. Take a look at Critical Role. Take a look at Matthew Mercer and Critical Role. They are a bunch of voice actors. I wouldn't say like super celebrities, but celebrities, right? Playing Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, now they're super celebrities. Think about that. Super celebrities. And Steve Colbert was talking D&D on the Tonight Show.
Now, to be fair, Stephen Colbert is like one of the biggest nerds in history.
Now, right, but he can get away with it.
Well, he can.
But that's the thing.
But, I mean, the man can probably recite the Silmarillion by memory.
But he chose, and this is the key thing, it was green lit by all the powers that be that tell you what is going to be allowed on this show or not.
That is true.
It was green lit. Somebody contacted this guy from Wizards of the Coast to come on there and be a guest, just to talk about like a clothing line inspired by Dungeons and Dragons art, and that is a really, really big indicator to me of where we're kind of going with everything. And so I stopped and I go, man, my wife just joined a D&D group. I do D&D on Sundays with you guys. I'm doing a one-on-one experimental role-playing thing on Call of Cthulhu for October with Impious on Fridays. Critical Role and Matthew Mercer, all of the D&D crew, these guys are going to be at TwitchCon, and they're kind of taking over a big chunk of it. It was a major shakeup when they announced the backlash, the investment, the water cooler talk over these fictional characters that were created live in front of you. You know, when one of them died, remember when one of the characters died on Critical Role, and there were like death threats and just fucking
that was rough.
It was insane. It was insane. It was similar to like it felt like this is what happens when, you know, like when Mary Tyler Moore went off the air, or when like a massive TV show had like a change in cast, and suddenly just it's what everybody's fucking talking about. When Game of Thrones comes back, every Monday at work, you're going to hear people having a conversation about what they just saw last night. D&D is doing that. People are getting that same reaction, that same feedback from these games, and it is spawning people because it's so accessible. It's not like Hollywood. It's something you can make. It's something you can do. So people are getting into it. And it's fun. Some people watch it because they want to watch. I asked viewers from our show, like, why the hell do you watch a show? I did this like impromptu without anybody kind of knowing it. So this is my big reveal, right? And I got a bunch of different answers. I got like 30 something answers, and I split them up into three kind of categories. There were people that were actually invested in the story and were pissed off whenever we went off on a tangent. They wanted to see what happened next. There were people that only were there because they wanted to hear background noise. Literally, they were just there because they like hearing us going back and forth. And if they heard boisterous, insane laughter, they knew to like focus and pay attention to what was going on so they can get the joke. And then there were people like, the exact quote was, I just like the chemistry you guys have. I like watching you interact. It reminds me of when I'm hanging out with my friends. And it's just one of those like, oh shit. Because a lot of people, when you graduate high school, when you go off to college, when you graduate college, when you become an adult, you kind of stop hanging out with your friends a whole lot. Especially when people, I'm noticing a lot of big broadcasters that they stream 18 hours a day. Well, they're getting married. And then they're going to stream 12 hours a day. And then they're going to start having kids. And they're going to stream 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day, whatever the case may be. When you start to enter that, if you choose, if it's your thing, start to enter that phase in your life, you treasure quality over quantity, and that's just the name of the game when it comes to interacting with other people.
Yeah.
You know, in an intimate setting. So intimacy is the key of it. Stuff like D&D, stuff like role-playing games, the screaming popularity of D&D, how it's kind of skyrocketed, become a mainstream thing. I mean, for fuck's sake, look at Stranger Things. Stranger Things was all about 80s campy, nostalgia, horror movie things, and D&D played a massive freaking role in the first season.
Yeah.
Second season too, technically.
Technically, yeah.
You know?
So would you? I keep going back to the would you say, and it's not the phrase that I want to.
Doesn't matter. I know what you're saying. I figured it out.
Do you think that kind of social connection and social space plays a larger part in those connections and in things like tabletop and D&D than the desire to tell a story does? Because we were talking earlier about this kind of resurgence of kind of really deep storytelling. How do you think those two factors compare to each other? Do you think one outweighs the other? And
Nope.
How are they balanced?
They're one and the same. At the end of the day, when you're playing a Western style RPG, when you're playing Divinity Original Sin 2, even if you're playing the multiplayer aspect of it, where there's like other people taking control of party members, and you're basically doing video game version of D&D, right? Whether you have a very meticulously and almost artisanally set up experience, where they're feeding you this very, you know, curated kind of story, and they're walking you through it, and they're being very descriptive, and you can get lost in that. If that's how you're getting the story told, or if the story is being told by committee, which is what the social interaction is. At the end of the day, the bedrock of it, what you're getting is a story. You're getting an experience. And more often than not, it feels like an authentic experience. And that goes back to what I'm seeing people value tremendously now. It's when you watch an episode of Game of Thrones and you're like, the fucking actors nailed it. Holy shit, why am I crying at the Red Wedding? Like, oh my god, it's affected me so much. These are actors. It's all fake. You are getting emotionally invested in the interactions between these people and the story that is being played out. When you're engaging in D&D, be it you're playing yourself actively as a participant, as an actor, as somebody on stage quotation marks, or you're watching somebody do it, you're still getting that, it's still triggering that same receptor in your brain. You're still seeing, the people, the old sage or the skald standing by the bonfire in front of the entire village telling you this grand epic fucking tale, and then you guys act it out and just becomes this thing. That kind of experience, to me, is just so much more accessible for everybody to engage with, and it's so rewarding. And I would love to see my hidden agenda, not so hidden agenda, I want to see more of it everywhere. I want to see more of that inclusivity of people being able to exercise that authenticity, like just all of that that we've talked about today. I want to see it on YouTube. I want to see it on Twitch. I want to see it on Netflix. I want to see it, at a friend's house if we go do a D&D in real life, that kind of thing.
So that actually brings up a question that I've been thinking about kind of throughout this whole discussion. Do you feel like platforms such as Twitch or YouTube, Mixer, whatever kind of social streaming platform you want to fill in the blank with, do you think that is a necessary factor for the resurgence of this type of social space and storytelling? Do you think that it would not be possible for this resurgence to happen without those platforms?
I don't know. My knee-jerk reaction is to say yes, they are absolutely integral to it happening. Because I want to be optimistic. I want to say eventually, it's just the way history works. History repeats itself. Trends come back, blah, blah, blah. I want to say we would have gotten there at some point. We would have gotten there. But we got there faster because of Twitch, because of YouTube, of live streaming platforms, things of that nature. Eventually, if it would have been just like image board posting or something on Reddit or something on Craigslist and saying, hey, I'm doing a D&D group, right? We're doing a viewing party for this or that, whatever. Maybe that would have been something that would have been able to trigger it, right? Because people still do viewing parties, right? Twitch is a giant fucking viewing party.
It is.
YouTube streaming is the same thing. All these live streaming platforms, when people use Rabbit to do movie nights, which happen all the time, that is essentially just everybody getting together in a virtual imaginary living room and watching a movie together or watching a show together and talking about it without interrupting. That's the beauty of it. That's the key. Because if I was in person and HP Fox was here and we were sitting in the living room with a bunch of our buds and we were watching a TV show and somebody makes a comment, you can't listen to that comment and listen to the TV show at the same time. But when the conversation is text-based, I can choose not to watch chat. I can instead focus on what's happening.
Yep.
And then in a lull, I'll look at chat and then I'll engage and I'll converse and go back and forth, that sort of thing. So to answer your question, maybe. I would say yes, it's important. It's important, almost integral. It could not have happened as fast as it has happened without these platforms. And I know that right now the big emphasis that corporately speaking Twitch is pushing is like esports. We're seeing a real hard push for them to try to, it almost feels like they're trying to legitimize esports, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't, in personal opinion, I don't think it needs legitimization. I think it is legit as fuck as is.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Topic for different discussion, but very short and sweet 2 cents. They're pushing in that direction right now because that's where the money is.
Oh yeah. That's exactly where the money is. And no insider trading. If you can invest in one of these upcoming like esports things, if you have a little bit of angel money investment, you have a little bit of play money that you're fucking around with, with your portfolio, throw a little bit there. You'll be supporting gaming, which is something that hopefully, if you're listening to this podcast, you are kind of into.
Yeah.
And you can make a little money on the side. It is poised to blow the fuck up.
So do you think that under any sort of imaginary circumstances you want to kind of use for this scenario, do you think tabletop could ever be on the scale that esports is on? Not necessarily like a stadium full of people and you win a ton of money, by killing the monster or whatever, but that kind of level of audience, the amount of eyes that are on esports and the amount that esports is talked about, do you think tabletop could ever reach that? Do you think the method of storytelling that is tabletop could ever have such a grand audience?
Yes, it already does.
If it does, then why don't we really know about it?
We do. Acquisitions Incorporated. Every single PAX.
You and I do.
Right.
Because we are part of the tabletop community.
Right.
But if you talk about Acquisitions Incorporated to, Joe down the street,
yeah, he won't know what the hell we're talking about.
Right. Not going to know what you're talking about.
So, to kind of pull the hyperbole back a little bit, right? Yes, I absolutely believe. I don't even need to stretch my imagination far to say that this sort of story-driven experience, this kind of like role-playing, play acting, amateur theater, whatever you want to call it, this can absolutely get to the scale of esports, let alone, I think it can even get to the point of traditional sporting events, right? Given enough time. Remember, we've had sports for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. We've had esports for like 15, right? Anyway, the audience right now does exist. You do see people filling a massive convention hall, like thousands of people sitting down to watch a bunch of grown men and women get up in costume, be on stage, and play fucking Dungeons and Dragons, man. You see it happen every PAX. Yeah. And that's just one convention, but then again, that's a convention.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally, it's two different experiences. You don't gather around in your living room and play football. You usually go to a park, and usually with a bigger group of people. You gather around in your living room with the key word I mentioned earlier is intimate. It is an intimate, personal connection. It is not the noise. It's not the stadium. It's not just one in like the 10,000 people sitting in this live stream. You are one of 4, one of 10, one of 15. Everybody has more breathing room. You can actually be heard. You have more agency in what's going on, and you can pay more attention, I think, in those kinds of situations. There's less distraction.
So, we are approaching time here, but I'm glad you said yes to that question I asked, because I do have one last question for you, and I wouldn't have been able to ask it if you said no. If tabletop ever reached the audience scale that esports is on, do you think that would have a negative impact on the way that story is told? Or do you think it would have a positive impact? It would surely have an impact, but where do you think that scale would go?
I think it would be a positive impact. I don't want to say that adding more people will give a negative impact, because ultimately there is just a hard cap. There is a hard ceiling on how many people can be involved playing a game. Just the mechanics of the game, the mechanics of the experience, it's just different. When you're playing in a shooter and it's 32 versus 32, or there's like 100 people and it's a free-for-all battle royale kind of thing, that's much more manic. That's there's no story to be told, right? Well, no intimate story to be told.
So do you not think that if it was on that scale, you might end up losing that personal connection to the story that's being told and the people that are portraying those characters, when there are hundreds of thousands of other eyes on this exact same thing that you're looking at?
No.
You don't think you'd lose that connection at all?
I don't think you'd lose that connection at all. When Critical Role has their games, they get thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people watching, scrutinizing, ripping apart, just kind of doing like the Simpsons comic book guy, kind of like breakdown of every little tiny thing that they say. And it doesn't detract. It changes the experience. I'll give you this much.
Do you not think it influences the direction of the story?
I would hope not. I would hope not. But that being said, I mean, it might. I'm not going to rule out that it couldn't. But that's up to the individual player. That's up to the individual actors, kind of thing. Like, hey, if Tom Cruise is acting in a movie, a professional actor, anybody, I'm not even to drop a name, but just think of any kind of actor, even any moderate actor who is portraying a role. If they're in a film or they're in a production or they're reading off a script and they know in their mind 20 people are going to watch this versus 20 million people are going to watch this, I have not seen anybody really change their behavior. If anything, they take more risks when they feel it's more intimate. They become more vulnerable. They become more authentic, or they just go all in, full on fucking Jared Leto method acting into the role that they're doing when they feel it's going to be scrutinized less. That's just my layman's way to think about it. My logic could absolutely be flawed. I'm not committing to that, to that position in the discussion. But I don't know, just the more that I think about what the experience truly is, I think that it's I don't think it would lose its intimacy. Then again, who are we talking about? The people playing the game or the people watching the game?
All of them, everyone involved.
Right, so the people playing the game, they're still only playing with a group of 6 or 7 people that they have chemistry with, and they have some kind of spark, right? That's not going to change. Hell, if anything, to be totally honest, if suddenly on our Sunday games, our viewership skyrocketed and we had hundreds of people in there, it would make me want to be more. It would make me want to commit more to role playing. It would want me to be a better player. I want to be a better showman. I want to be a better player. I want to have a better experience myself and to give other people a better experience. And I can
get behind that. I don't mean to cut you off, but
we're at time, man. We're
going over time. So I kind of took the role of interviewer in this particular episode, which I think worked out because we talked about a lot of kind of really personal things, and we got to have a good view of your perspective on them, and I think that has an inherent value to it. I do want to point out that I did ask some questions and make some points that I don't necessarily agree with.
You like playing devil's advocate. It works. It's what keeps the conversation going, man.
You have to have that devil's advocate to progress the conversation. So I wanted to put that out there. But given that I have been asking questions and taking that role, I am going to defer final thoughts to you.
Final thoughts to me. All right.
Yeah.
I guess the last word before we do the outro. The whole this entire conversation kind of began with talking about how single player games are making a comeback, and it's great to see people having so much fun and seeing so much influence and so much attention circling around a single player experience, right? But a single player experience is usually a story driven experience for those that don't really understand the connection I'm making in my head about it. So stories are taking the forefront again. It's less about the spectacle, less about, the guy in the costume with the fake, with the fake mullet and all that other shit. It's not the gimmick. It's more the story.
Just straight up gonna call out Dr. Disrespect there.
I love him. He's funny as hell to watch. Don't get me wrong, but there lacks substance. Anyway. To get back into the final thought, I'm really, really digging where this is going, because as a broadcaster, it's really, really difficult as a live entertainer. Hell, even if I was doing pre-recorded content, it's hard to spin all these plates at once. It's hard to remain relevant on social media. It's difficult to do that simultaneously while you are also engaging with your audience, while you are also engaging with your audience offline, while you're still trying to have a personal life and a social life, potentially even a family life, as well as putting food in your body and a roof over your head. All of these things, all of these thoughts and worries and detractors and all these stressors, you know, not to mention, not even going to get into what's happening, you know, politically or socially or whatever it is. There's so many different things that play in. Being able to see gaming come back to a place where it's more of put the world on hold for a few moments. Let's go to this world. Let's do this instead. Let's get lost in this story, or let's try to role play. Let's try to bring out parts of ourselves, actors, ideas that we have. Let's go back to playing pretend, which is all that it is, you know? And there's something nice. There's something wholesome about that childlike feeling of, you know what? I don't got to worry about my fucking bills. I don't got to worry about, you know, the world my daughters are growing up in. I don't got to worry about the trip to TwitchCon and if I'm going to lose my baggage or if I'm going to get the merch I want to get at BlizzCon the next, you know, weekend or all that bullshit. And I can instead just sit down and be like, wasn't that fucking awesome when, you know, Crest jumped off this thing and said, catch me, and then Fives caught him, and it was just amazing. But then it was so tragic when this other thing happened. To be able to go and share those stories with one another is what we've been doing as fucking human beings since, like, the beginning. And I like that we're getting back to that. Because we've been away from it for a while. Because there's just a lot of fucking noise. Just your smartphone alone, you are bombarded all the time by so much crap.
Mine was actually going off earlier, and I really hope the mic didn't pick that up.
I picked up a beep or two, but who cares?
God damn it.
No, but that's the thing, man. Yeah, so anyway,
well,
I'm not
drives the point home.
Yeah, it drives the point home. It's like, it's nice to be able to breathe again. And I think that's what it's letting us do. It's letting us be okay being alone. And at the same time, it lets us be okay being, like, intimately authentic with other people, with friends, and making friends in the first place. Anyway, that's my spiel. That's my TED Talk.
That's a good note to kind of end it on. I do want to make one other point. We mentioned earlier in the show about the Stephen Colbert show and the fellow that was on that show. But we didn't mention his name or his company, and I feel like we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't.
I spaced out, my bad.
His name, forgive me if I mispronounced the last name here, is Joe Manganiello.
Yep.
Something of that sort. And the company is Death Saves. They have a lot of beautiful D&D inspired merch, apparel, prints, accessories, that kind of thing. So if that interests you at all, go check them out. I highly recommend them. But that is going to do it for us on this episode, the 7th episode. I did the coffee thing again. God damn it.
Stop doing that.
You're
gonna spill all over yourself.
Touching stuff.
For those of you listening and not seeing, his hands are he's so upset right now.
I need to fiddle with things. I need to do stuff with my hands. But that's going to do it for this episode. I am HB Fox. You can find me on Twitter at HBFoxTV. And Spoonersloth, who are you? I'm
me. I'm Spoonersloth. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Spoonersloth, at Spoonersloth, SPOONERSLOTH. Also on Twitch, on Instagram. Goddamn, everywhere with that name is me.
I wish I had my name everywhere. And you can find this podcast on Spoonersloth's channel in video format, or on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, basically any audio delivery service you can think of. Just search for Press Pause Podcast, and you can get in touch with us on Twitter by using the hashtag Press Pause Podcast. Join in the discussion, bring up any counterpoints that we may have missed, or call us idiots for presenting idiotic points.
It's like, what do you think, guys? Am I completely full of shit? I know you want to tell me that. You're used to saying that online. Come on. I know you want to tell me how full of shit I am.
Don't hold back, guys.
Don't hold back.
But you can also, if there's something you'd like to see us discuss on this podcast, you can also use that hashtag on Twitter to, throw your ideas at us. Let us know what you want to hear about.
All right, and that about does it for us. So we will see you next time. Enjoy your weekend if you are listening to this live as it comes out. Bye,
and
everybody.
See some of you at TwitchCon.
Yes.